Right at 9 o'clock Pacific, I'm going to go ahead and start on time because I know a lot of people seem to manage their calendars and might be planning a helicopter approach to today and drop in for pieces. So good morning, good afternoon, and good evening. We welcome all of you from wherever it is. Sorry?
Good evening here from Kenya.
Excellent, excellent. We're welcoming everybody across so many time zones and countries for taking time to engage with ISSIP. And I'm Michelle Carroll, Executive Director of ISSIP, with just a couple housekeeping details. And the most important one right now, we are recording this event. And let me ask everybody on the call to please mute your speaker right now, unless you're the speaker, and that's me this moment. Everybody else, please mute your microphone right now. This is the second in our two-part Discovery Summit series for 2022 on the topic of the future of expertise. There will be a white paper that we'll publish when with key insights that are exchanged here today, and also informed by the survey that ISSIP has been fielding since the summer. And there is still time for you to complete that survey. It takes 5 minutes. You'll find it in the Zoom chat right now on the Zoom call. So if you've not yet completed the survey, please do. And we ask you use the Zoom chat with any questions you might have or comments you want to make, your hellos from where you are, everything over the course of this 2 hours. Please do use the Zoom chat. That chat stream is one of the most interesting things about an ISSIP event. And there is still time to vote. September is wrapping up. This is when, if you are an ISSIP member, this is when we vote for vice president of ISSIP next year, which is typically the president in the following year. The link will be in the chat. That's the page right now on the website where the form for voting is. You do need to be a member. And also there's a link, will be a link in the chat about ISSIP membership if you're interested in knowing more about us. It is at this point in time free to be an individual member of ISSIP. And with that, let me turn it over to our president, Terry Griffith.
Thank you very much, Michelle, and thank you for running this set of the slides. I'm just here to welcome everyone to this event that is at the heart of the things we do that have so much value within ISSIP. And this image is kind of our reassessment recently. We've done a deep dive into the things where we believe we're providing our members the greatest value. And today, we're clearly focusing on the Speak and the Network, but so many other things that ISSIP can offer you as an individual, offer your organization, or as you're thinking about your team and their professional development. So do think about joining if you haven't yet. And if you haven't been recruiting your colleagues, please think about that as well. And Michelle, let's go ahead to the next one. I just want to be thanking all the organizations who are joining us here today. And of course, this is just a subset of the organizations that engage with ISSIP. And let's move on to the next. And the set of folks that you'll be getting to hear from today. So this is just a little bit of a foreshadowing, but the industries we cover, the fact that we bring education and industry together, and especially we're becoming much more active in even tying our student members into how they can work with both their university and with industry partners to create great value across service innovation. So thank you all, and Michelle, back to you.
All right, thank you, Terry. So this is the timing and flow that we've put together for what we're envisioning as a pretty tight 2-hour block, which is shorter than what has been typical for an ISSIP summit. We'd appreciate your feedback on that when it's all completed today. We'll go after this short welcome. I'll walk through the preliminary survey findings. I mentioned to you that this is the second in a 2-part series. So they were presented in June. We'll show you where it stands now. And again, not too late to complete that survey. So a brief walkthrough of the survey findings to date to set the stage for today's conversation. with a summary of what you've told us you think about the future of expertise. And then we'll move to Hila Lifshitz-Asaf will lead the opening session on the process of innovation in the digital age, which we promise is going to engage you. After that, Terry will moderate an hour block of which again is, and there will be, an opportunity for Q&A with Hila after her talk. Then there's the 1 hour panel discussion on the future of expertise at global scale, speed, complexity that Terry Griffith will moderate, which is going to be, a third, some 2.5 brief perspectives from the panelists, a mixture of industry and academia perspectives, and then a lot of dynamic dialogue and exchange that Terry will moderate. And again, there will be an opportunity for interaction with you and the panelists as well. And that brings us to our keynote address by Joanne Wright, who is a transformational leader of IBM and a vice president at IBM. Then I'll wrap the day with a couple calls to action and a very special offer put together by Martin Fleming and Jim Sporer that's worth sticking around for those last 2 slides. So that's our flow for the day. And let's just walk through the survey findings today. So there was no change in direction from what Jim shared at part 1 of the Discovery Summit in June. Basically, we had asked, for those that haven't yet completed the survey, on a scale of 1 to 5, if you agree, strongly agree, disagree, the 4 and 5 rating, so more than 83% here, agree that, or strongly agree, that the future of expertise is surely some blend of traditional college graduate education expertise, entrepreneurial and technology maker expertise, business, government, sports, art, media, political influencer expertise, and perhaps a few new types of expertise emerging, including AI. So again, mostly agreement, well over 70–80% on all of these on this page. The future of expertise includes more responsible actors and their AI, digital twins, in learning networks, investing systematically in becoming more T-shaped with breadth and depth of expertise, more collaboration with AI and robots, more science-based approaches to the development of expertise of individuals, cities, and nations. But there is, again, it's consensus, well over, just over half agree with that, but there is this quarter that don't see it that way, or, middle of the road. There were a couple areas where, while there is agreement, more than half do agree, there was a decent chunk that are less strongly agreeing that the future of expertise includes more misinformation, erosion of trust, and the rise of powerful influencers with vested interests. I found that interesting, that there's a dispersion, and the same kind of dispersion, there is agreement, but a strong third don't really see that the future of expertise includes more racing to get the latest hot skills. Maybe not necessarily, maybe say 40%. Oh, interesting. Where there is a solid consensus and agreement is on these core 4 statements. The future of expertise includes more collective and swarm intelligence, more demand for social emotional intelligence, more lifelong learning, and more learning, unlearning, and adapting to accelerating change, which I thought brings us to a really good point to shift to perhaps the leading authority on how to adapt to a changing and accelerating pace of change, Dr. Hila Lifshitz-Asaf. So Hila, you want to take over? I will stop share. And,
thank you so much.
And do tell us a little bit about yourself and the work you do, Hila, before walking into your talk, please.
Definitely. So there was a debate about listening to a short piece of music before I start talking for 10 seconds or so. So I will hit play and let the Zoom decide. If we see that it works and like in 10 seconds, you have a guess of who is this music by, we'll start with that. And if it doesn't work, because Zoom sometimes is not the best in audio, does it work or not?
Yes, we hear it.
So guesses on the chat of who is the composer? Or the name of the piece? Or the orchestra? Okay, an AI. Anyone knows the name? Any chance? Okay. You have an AI to try to recognize what we're listening as we speak.
Ela, can you do see chat?
Yes, so you are indeed on spot. So this is Ava. This is the first AI recognized composer in the world that is now recognized as a composer by 2 countries, surprisingly, Belgium and France, which we would not, I would say, guess that these will be the first ones to recognize the machine as a composer. And that just kind of a build up to talk about and to throw us a little bit to the future. So the title of my talk was, Would Anyone Shout Eureka in 2032? And I said 2032 just to think about 10 years ahead. I'm not talking about 20 or sci-fi, 5 to 10 years. And this is now, right, already, what I just shared with you. But what I would like to discuss with you is what is the future of innovation processes. So my name is Dr. Hila Lifshitz-Aisaf. I work at Harvard Lish, the Lab for Innovation Sciences, and I will talk to you about our work there because I would like to engage with you since we engage with organizations and thought leaders in the practice, in the industry, that we want to work together to get to that future of innovation processes. And I'm faculty member, a professor at Warwick Business School in the UK, when we're also looking into both innovation and other areas that have to do with digital transformation and digitization overall. So why am I the one talking about this? So I've been studying for the last, 15, 20, I don't know how many years, I've been puzzled by the process of innovation. And I've been studying how technology changes the process of innovation. And I will take you through a quick journey on the underlying assumptions we've had on the process of innovation and whether they are changing now and how can we change them and what should we do about them together. So as Michelle said, I would love to engage with you, get your ideas in the chat. Feel free to write them, to ask me questions as I go along. You can raise a hand or just unmute and start talking. I have no problem with that. I welcome questions. And if I feel it's too much, we can do it in the end, but I welcome engagement. So let's start. So the focus of today will be rethinking the role of experts, crowds, and AI in the process of innovation. And we'll start with experts, since this is a traditional innovation process that everything has been built on since Greek times, right? I am thinking I'm the expert. I have a PhD. I graduated from Harvard. I should be the one talking here, right? That's all built about this model that we train humans to be experts of a specific domains, and they should be the one leading the innovation in their expertise, in their domain. Then it took us a couple of hundreds of years to say, okay, maybe it's not the lone innovator mythos. Maybe there were people around that person who innovated, and they're also important. Oh, maybe we should have few people together innovate. We still don't give Nobel Prizes to awards to teams, but there were some discussions in the last few awards, if you track them, that maybe that's wrong. Maybe we shouldn't just give individual a Nobel Prize award because it's usually more than an individual that innovates. So I would say we still have that myth and that belief, and that's how our education system is built. As some of you talked about, what will be the future, right? Will it still be graduate schools? We still give grades. Most of the grades are individuals, right? We still incentivize individuals to be the one innovating, to be the one producing new technologies. We've learned that it's not just about those individual rewards, maybe it's a group, and definitely in the last century, I would say it's all about trying to bring diverse and collaborative kind of skills that complement each other into a team. So that has been the, I would say, very popular way of innovating. You have a problem in your organization. What do? You bring the best experts, or maybe you also bring some people that are not domain experts, but you bring them around a table, virtual or not, and you try to brainstorm, you try to solve the problem together. And then a decade ago, I would say more or less, the web and all the web-based kind of innovation processes started emerging. And then people started thinking and writing and building online platforms and the ability to work from anywhere and innovate from the tip of our fingers, from our phones, right? So models like crowdsourcing and democratizing innovation, superminds and crowdfunding and others started emerging, and open source started coming, what we thought was like, ridiculous a decade ago to have few individuals doing something so fundamental as software is now obvious reality. This is also spilling over in other areas of science and technology. So all of a sudden, people said, why do we even need people? Why do we need people to sit together in a table, in the same company or in the same organization where people can work from anywhere? And we definitely hear it right now, right? Since the pandemic, it's like, what is the value of us being in one organization? So many authors and many thought leaders and many online platforms have tried to say, no longer kind of this internal organizational way of doing innovation. Instead, we should just be doing distributed online way of organizing for innovation processes. And basically, since this is something possible, many organizations have started trying it out. I will share with you briefly a longitudinal in-depth field study that I conducted with the leading organization that have the leading domain experts in their field, which is NASA specifically. And they said, let's try this online distributed innovation process, even on the hardest kind of rocket science, hardcore science, and technology problems. And let's see, is there value in this new way of organizing or not? And I did my study before, throughout, and after their experimentation. I don't have time here to share with you the whole study. I'm happy to do a whole separate talk about it, but I just want to give you kind of the tip of the iceberg, the main findings to take you through kind of, what's happening today and what organization is experimenting and what could happen tomorrow or in the next 10 years. What they did, they took all the labs that they had in the division of Space Life Science Directorate, all of their strategic R&D challenges, the problems that are blocking them from making radical innovation, from making the next strategy happen, right? So you think about a wide variety of, if you can look at them, scientific and technological problems, hardcore problems that the best experts in their fields cannot solve right now. And they tried in parallel for 1 year to solve them internally with contractors, collaborators, of course, grants, all the regular collaborative innovation models, but also on this online distributed model that is open to anyone, that they don't know who's trying to solve these problems. They chose 3 of the 4 leading global online platforms, Innocentive, yet to come, and TopeCoder. And over 3,000 solvers from 80 different countries tried to participate with a wide variety of skill set. And to share with you kind of the tip of the findings, a scientific breakthrough took place in 3 months on one of the hardest, challenging heliophysics problem of the ability to predict solar flares, solar storms. And if you see this guy, Bruce Craigan, a semi-retired radio engineer from rural New Hampshire, he was able in less than 3 months to solve a problem that for a decade has not been solved by the best experts of the field of heliophysics at NASA and outside. And this is his photo, by the way, that he shared in the White House Office of Science and Technology Policy when he got an award for this breakthrough. And he said, please do more of those. Otherwise, this is what I'm doing every night. And I hope you can see that there is a cat and he's watching TV, right? So we have all of this amazing cognitive surplus out there in the world. So on one hand, this is a great proof to the idea that we could have this online distributed innovation model produce scientific breakthrough. On the other hand, what happened at NASA back after these results, right? So I stayed there to see what are they doing with these results? How are they incorporating them or not? How are they changing their model or not? I can tell you in brief that it was, a life storm, not a solar storm, but a physical storm between people. And people were arguing, is this the right way to go? What does it mean? Why am I here if you're giving those problems away to someone else? And a lot of emotions. In short, it created tensions, resistance, and those that did want to change it, many of them even left their labs. So it required a deep transformation that went all the way to who they are and how they think about their work. So that's why some of the interesting results you had from the surveys, I think have to, and we can do it in a separate session, have to do with the way to get to a change also has to go deep inside in changing how we think about our jobs. But for today, what I'll talk to you about is what I think is the cause for this threat that is not necessarily rightfully there. So basically, a lot of this threat happened because the underlying assumption of all the crowdsourcing online platform was that it's time to substitute one model for the other. No longer R&D experts should be the one leading the innovation process. Instead, anyone from anywhere online, right? There is no room for the experts to be solving anymore, almost according to that model. And that creates some of this tension, is this assumption that we substitute the old model with the new one. We are now falling in love with the online models. And now I see the same happening with AI. So all of a sudden, I'm hearing all of the same claims that I heard kind of a decade ago about who needs experts, who needs organizations. The same thing is happening now with AI. Who needs humans to innovate? Who needs composers, human composers, when you can have this beautiful music? And there is a whole project now on, can we have AI become a patent owner? Can we use, so it's real. Like there are now court cases about, can we actually issue a patent on the name of a machine and not on a human, right? So I have been thinking with myself, are we going in the right direction? Is what expecting now, just to try to say, okay, again, let's fall in love with the new model and make the other model obsolete? Have we learned anything from the last decade? So with a group of people that are computer scientists and computational creativity researchers, we've built a framework that we published recently on how can we rethink and redesign the innovation process. Instead of waiting to see what companies are doing, we are taking the bold move of saying, let's say what we think is the way to go. Let's talk together. Let's try to reimagine together the future of what is the right future for innovation processes. We don't want to just substitute one model for the other. We want to take the best from each of those potential models and try to see and push the boundaries of what we can do as a society to innovate. Since it's really nice to say that we are in this like crazy innovation stage in our society, but if you think about the big societal problems, they are aching, they are burning, and we don't have like clear solutions, right? If you think about sustainability and environment and climate change, and medicine is still, I think, in the 19th century, sorry, but all those important domains, in COVID even, we've seen it, right? Like some things that you're saying, how come this is not solved yet? And it's not a technological problem, right? So there is something about the process that can work better. We suggest one potential hybrid, but there are many other models in this theory. We're saying that the advantage of human experts are to be able to think in a complex way, to solve complex problems, and to bring and ideate in a complex way and to bring complex solutions. But we often get stuck. And the advantage then becomes of crowds or online distributed platforms and ways to organize are the ability to have someone that is outside of your field looking at your problem, that is more distant, right? We want that distance sometimes because it can help break this cognitive fixation, this inability to solve problems. And then when we really want to get things on scale, we need AI. There are capabilities that AI can offer that humans cannot do, that we already know. That is changing, of course, every couple of months. But to get to a scale, to be able to solve these problems on a whole different level, instead of the local way we are solving now, every nation, every organization, every consortium, then maybe we can use AI. And I want to share with you a few studies that we are doing towards this direction and to invite you to engage with us, because most of them are field experiments with companies, with organizations, and we would love your participation. So study number one, we are experimenting with an AI image generator to augment experts in new product design processes. So as I said, instead of just replacing the old with the new, instead of saying, oh, who needs experts anymore, right? We are saying, wait a minute, how can we use these tools to augment experts? So for instance, if you've seen tools such as designing new shoes, designing new cars, anyone here, I'm curious in the chat, has been using in the last few weeks DALL-E or Stable Diffusion or any of the AI generators? Okay, I see some nods. I'm trying to see. Yes. Okay. Annie is saying yes. Definitely. Okay. Jim, I warmly recommend, Terry, I warmly recommend to play with these tools. What we see with these AI image generators, for those of you who haven't, is the ability to scan massive amounts of images. And because of the text abilities that we have today, to basically use the ability to transfer from text to image and vice versa, which was not possible like 2 years ago even. Okay, so you can literally say, I'm looking for a shoe that can help me run in the snow and go save people that are stuck. I don't know, I'm improvising, but something, let's say, that has a fabric that can go under this temperature and flammability and all these different demands, and it brings you images that it search according to your text, and it helps us think. Some people in some domains like photography and game design are saying maybe it's going to replace us. And the question is, can we think of a way to use it to enhance our experimentation, to help bring ideas to life? Think about many times that you have an idea, but it's in your head. How much would you like to have something that can help you visualize it and even like help you advance it to a whole way that then you can pitch to your manager or to a VC, right? Or to anyone, or you can just test it with yourself and see, does it make sense, your idea? So that is the direction of kind of not, instead of automation and replacement, to think of how we can augment it. And we have a company that is using kind of and building a super giant AI that is willing to collaborate with us and is open to any company who wants to try to let its R&D professionals, designers, new product designers, managers, entrepreneurs, to try to use this tool and see with our methods of how we can use it for augmentation and for experimentation and not just to replace, how it can actually make us experts, break our cognitive fixation, become more creative thinkers, and enhance our abilities. So that's study number 1. Any question around that?
Hey,
Okay. Yes.
Hey, Hila. Will large companies have an advantage?
That's a good question. Not necessarily, I would say. This can play to both sides, right? You can imagine this can expedite the ability of small companies and entrepreneurs, lower the barriers of entry for many entrepreneurs, right? On the other hand, large companies have great advantages when it comes to taking processes of something new and really making it into something kind of more standard. So I think that's the big advantage, that those big companies that will know how to use it can do it much, on a scale, and then it becomes kind of an engine, I would say, to reignite, because we know that big companies have the challenge of starting as very innovative, but that innovation kind of gets erodes and sometimes fades away as those companies grow older. So this can reignite those creative juices internally.
So I have a question. I would assume that there's a demographic shift happening when we look at any kind of, disruptive and like all of the things that are happening from a digital transformation perspective. We look at boomers and Gen X are more, they are less likely to fully embrace identity. But what you've gotten to is you've talked about creatives. Mm-hmm. And so this is something that I know graphic designers, I know writers, and they're really concerned. So what you're talking about, is this a demographic thing, or is it across all demographics, everyone is worried?
That is a great question. So as I told you, my NASA research was around scientists and engineers, and I didn't put the music for no reason. I have a PhD student who studies music and AI, and we see that resistance and that threat. And again, I think we are in interesting times of choices that we can make. In a very general sense, as people who influence the field, but also in a very personal sense of, do we want to use these tools and how? I think consumption is choice, is voting, right? So many artists are now banning some of these tools, banning using them when competing. There are a lot of interesting things happening now in the artist world, that now in competition for arts, humans that are basically only doing their own art versus those that are enhanced by these AI generators, and they're saying it's not fair competition, right? So there are many interesting questions, and these will be interesting times to study them. I would love if anyone wants to share with me if their professionals or their friends or are using such tools and they're seeing some dramas taking place. We are definitely keeping track of that in those more creative professionals. In the more, I would say, science and technology professionals, I've seen less of that drama so far. For instance, in pharma, chemistry areas that have started using it. But I do see that they are not sure of how to use it without feeling that threat. And that's what we are trying to suggest, that it doesn't have to be this way. That is the choice that we have as managers to design our R&D process. And it's a question, do we believe in our professionals and in the experts and in their ability to even become stronger in their creative and innovative capabilities?
So this is Sunil Kripalani. I have a follow-up question to that. I think that's a really interesting thread that you just pulled on, right? So let's set aside the technology element of it for just a moment. When you think about this from the human element that you touched on, and you map that to industries, are you seeing any trend in industries that are embracing this perhaps a little bit more than others? And I'm particularly keying off a comment you made at the outset, where you said you think medicine is still in the 19th century, right? There's something back there. So I'd love to get your sense of if you're seeing a pattern across industries with this.
So medicine, I can tell you about healthcare, for instance, it's a fascinating area, which unfortunately is in the 19th century, but they're trying to use AI to kind of catch up, but that cannot just happen like that. So I've been tracking AI in the area of radiology and have in-depth studies on that for the last few years. And I'm happy to talk more in depth, but just high level, healthcare is adopting AI strongly in the last few years. I would say even maybe a bit too fast in the sense that because other things are not in place yet to even evaluate it properly, right? So if you just think about it, the ability to evaluate AI has to be based in according or against some ground truth, right? Or against some other objective measurement, but we don't have that in many cases in healthcare. You don't actually know if the diagnosis was correct or not. As a patient, you know, maybe if you're still alive after that, but you don't know it on a system level, right? So you actually cannot even evaluate. So healthcare is moving fast and in a, concerning way sometime, I would say, but very interesting as well. So I'm happy to do a whole different, chat about that. And other industries, pharma is moving very fast.
Hila, let me pop in to say, and actually, Sunil, we're talking about maybe an event around healthcare. This is not a presentation anyone wants to cut short, but since we are at your time, please go ahead
2 minutes?
and let's.
Do I have 2 more minutes? Michelle, tell me.
No, absolutely. And let me ask folks to put your questions in the chat, and let's let Lila get to study number 2. Okay,
Michelle, do I have 2 more minutes or how much? Tell me. 2. Okay, so I'll tell you about the 2 other studies and that's it. Okay. Study number 2 is search algorithms to enhance divergent thinking. If you think about how Google search is built, right? It's creating filter bubbles and people are now using it for everything from searching how to get to your favorite restaurants to also how to produce the new climate kind of change solution, right? And Google search is not built for creativity, but it's become our dominant thing. So we are building things that are on top of Google search that can modify and can actually get divergent thinking and not to this like filter bubble problem that we all know. Anyone wants to hear more? Afterwards, I'm happy to talk to you. The tool is ready to be experimented in a month with companies and individuals who want to experiment. And study number 3, it's the hardest to build technologically, but it's very cool. Imagine if you had an analogical inspiration engine on the top of your fingers that you can actually get inspiration for your problems. So this is searching for analogies in distant domains for things that you are working on and helping you boost those analogical thinking capabilities. So, and this will be ready in half a year to be tested. It's ready to be piloted, but it takes a little bit harder because it's analogical thinking is hard to build. But these are 3 different projects that are all open for experimentation, and we would love anyone who wants to become a part of our pilot study. And this is all built, of course, on strong NLP capabilities. And we welcome you to be in touch with us and to be part of our study at the Harvard Lab for Innovation Sciences. Thank you so much, and I'm here for questions, chat afterwards, etc.
All right, Hila, thank you so much. And if you would stop your screen share just for a moment, and I will say that we're going to just assume that you are part of the panel discussion that's going to follow in just a moment. And the other thing I want to make sure everyone understands is Gila is one of the ISSIP ambassadors. So we have a deep tie into her work. And I also believe she's committed to joining us for another Discovery Summit in the future. Yes, see, now we have it recorded. Well done. All right. Well, thank you so much. And as I said, we're just going to continue this conversation both in the chat and following these brief panel introductions that I am going to start off right now. All right. And am I there?
Yeah.
I am. Okay. That's
Not yet.
That's interesting. I'm not seeing it.
It says you are viewing Terry's screen, but I don't actually see your slide.
Ah, okay. Yeah, that's a trick. Okay, I'm going to stop sharing. Oh, it says screen sharing is paused. I've never seen that one. All right, we'll stop and we'll give it another go. Give me just a moment. And yes, we did practice this many times. And going back to the beginning. Here. Screen sharing is still paused. Has anyone ever seen, we can do a little distributed innovation here. Has anyone ever seen that before?
No.
Yeah.
Can whoever is the host maybe stop screen sharing and see if that restarts it up maybe?
Sounds like a great plan.
Host
Yeah, now we see all the people, so it should
Now we
work
see
now,
all the
Terry.
people.
Okay,
Yeah, try
we see
sharing
it.
now.
Actually, here
All
I'm
right.
switching it to all participants, which I thought was
That sounds lovely. Okay. No, screen sharing is paused. Stop share. Hey, Michelle, why don't you just run them for us? Would you mind?
not at all.
All
That's
right.
why you always have somebody with a backup set of slides.
Yes, ma'am.
Share. Do we see my screen?
We do, and now we're going to go
Do.
to the show. Wonderful. Well, I'm just going to give the briefest of introductions to this panel and say that as you've been, as we've shared, this is the second Discovery Summit on the future of expertise. The first, the result of from the community was that, well, that was great. We saw a lot of, what kind of things, but we didn't see a lot of how kind of things. And so our approach here is to go out to people who have been in the trenches in terms of thinking about the future of expertise. And certainly Gila was just sharing a lot of that with us. And now we're going to go into the particular leaders and their organizations and what they've been able to do. So let's go to the next one. And again, just foreshadowing who we're going to be able to hear from, and not exactly in that order. So let's just go ahead to the next. And Bindia, we're going to start with you, and we're going to stop screen sharing so we can just have more of a community feel. Every presenter is going to take 5 minutes, and then we will go to a conversation at the end of that 30 minutes. And like I said, I'm looking forward to Healy joining us back for that. But Bindia, thank you.
Thank you, Terry, and everyone. Thank you for the time and participation. My name is Bindia Vakil. I'm the founder and CEO of Redesign. Redesign is a innovative supply chain disruption, risk monitoring, and supply chain mapping solution that a company that I started 12 years ago I come out of the high-tech industry, direct material sourcing and procurement roles, went from Cisco, Flextronics, Broadcom, went to MIT, did my master's in supply chain many years ago before starting Resolink. The goal with Resolink was, and I think we're all seeing the last 2.5 years of supply chain problems and disruptions. And I always felt like whack-a-mole was my job, and I was a glorified part chaser in direct procurement. And I started Resolink to solve this problem. The two things I realized while working in supply chain risk was that risk was a data problem, that we didn't know where. We look at a car, it has thousands of components that come from 30 plus countries around the world, and we don't know where each part is coming from. And every day things are happening in these countries that an OEM might not be aware of. So these are the two things: where do parts come from, and in real time, what is happening that might bring the supply of those parts down. And it's an AI problem because these things don't get nicely reported in the English language. Countries report news in hundreds of languages, and media covers these news, social media, all of that gets reported in many languages. So I started Resolink to create that natural language processing engine that could watch everything across the internet in over 100 languages and provide an early warning, so that companies not only would be aware that something had happened, but because we had mapped their supply chain out, they would be able to triangulate and say exactly these parts would not be coming on time, though that would affect the production of these 50 products. This topic is near and dear to my heart because it was an innovative problem. When we started the company, the world did not care about supply chain risk, and we did not appreciate the immense economic hardship that supply chain disruptions could wreak on our lives. Lives can be lost. People can lose their jobs. It can cause economic upheaval. Our growth plans can be halted. And it has been an exercise. Leela, your presentation was incredibly, I felt it every day because it was a problem of adoption. I struggled 10 years on getting the world to embrace the capabilities for managing risk more proactively and using AI because of some of what you talked about, the threat of people feeling like this is going to replace me, and how procurement looks at their role in managing supply, how companies define what is important to them that then drives behavior across the organization. The type of people we've hired in procurement for sure are people we've told them that your job is to go cost save. And so they call the supplier asking for cost savings every day. When problems happen, these people do not have the skill set to solve problems together, working in a more collaborative trust and transparency type of environment, which is what you need to manage continuity of supply. So we see that the world has so much more access to technology, but we are in the way of embracing, adopting on a day-to-day basis across so many different roles. And talent is the need of the hour. I mean, look at supply chain. Supply chain powers every aspect of our life. I mean, if you are looking around you right now, everything that your eyes land on has a supply chain, no matter how small. Every part, everything, your product that is around you right now had a supply chain behind it. It powers our existence. And when that fails, there are massive consequences. And so when I would go out to talk to investors, and I will talk about my fundraising experience because we think, Silicon Valley, the hub of innovation, well, wouldn't people recognize this as something that needs investment and further, innovation? But people kind of have that traditional mindset of, well, supply chains have been around since humanity has been around. Why do you need risk management now? right? So these are the type of questions we often ask ourselves. But by the way, I have a good story on that. My response to that was, have you guys heard of the saying, for want of a nail, a kingdom was lost? It basically says, for want of a nail, you couldn't make a horseshoe. So because you didn't have enough horseshoes, you didn't have enough knights, so you didn't have enough soldiers to fight your battle, and you lost your kingdom, and all for the want of a horseshoe nail. So I would come back to them and say, well, you're absolutely right. And this was humanity's first documented case of a multi-tier supply chain disruption, and how a small part can cause a massive impact. So our life is, our successes are powered by supply chain. The technology is there, it's AI, but it does not replace humans. At the end of the day, it's a different set of skill sets that are needed, that work together with the AI to make the world spin around and our lives possible, and the supply chain to work. The good news, bad news is that the world is changing. We have climate change, we have an aging demographic in most countries and continents around the world. There simply is not enough talent. We have a truck driver on the ground, not enough warehouse people. We don't have enough people, truck drivers. The truck driver shortage is likely to go from 80,000 right now to 800,000 truck drivers short. We have massive shortages of crew on ships. Every aspect of the supply chain has people running it. And so talent and technology is the need of the hour. And so I think embracing and adopting is where we need the world to focus.
Thank you so much. I'm looking forward to the continued conversation, and the chat was quite strong. I mean, I think with Hurricane Ian, we can all imagine the immense value. And I'm thinking of buying a new domain name called Not Humanly Possible. I have to go see if that one's available. But Michelle, can you show our slides again, please?
Are we shared?
I'm hoping you can.
Do we? Oh, you do not see it yet?
No, not yet.
Hold up. Back to Zoom. I didn't choose it. This one. Go. All right. And yes.
All right.
All right.
Very, very good. And Gerhard does have slides. And so I guess, Gerhard, you'll be working with Michelle to advance those. But Gerhard, if you do your brief introduction and then tell us about your perspective.
Yes, thank you very much. Thank you very much to be part of this really intriguing discussion here. And I'm coming from Aachen University and actually working for one of the major institutes, FIR, and I've working for more than 20 years in the area of transformation. First, I was involved in the, let's say, whole initiative of service transformation, servitization. And then I built up a department about digital transformation. And at this time, I'm concentrating on urban innovation and how to transform and digitalize the real estate industry and how to rethink mobility in urban areas. So these are things I'm driving forward at the moment. And if you just take the next slide, please. I think that smart industries need smart people, and I think that's quite important for us to consider. So everybody in this, let's say, in this discussion here and this community knows that this sentence is more or less for granted. But when I get back for just some hours ago, today morning, we had an interesting meeting with one of our industry partners, Johnson Controls, JCI. You might know this company, a huge American company, 100,000 employees. And this company, as one company among others, is starting with us to work on the idea how we can decarbonize our environment. Cities account for around 70% of the CO2 emission, and buildings and spaces account for around 40% of the global CO2 emission. That's one thing. The other thing is that digitalization might be one important means to solve this issue. So people expect that really, if we would use the existing technology in buildings, for example, we could reduce the CO2 emission by 20%, just using what we have in a proper way. The challenge is that this industry does not have the right people. And this industry, the real estate industry, and the related industries, so component manufacturers, software industries, they have tools, they have sophisticated solutions, but they don't have the people to implement it. They don't have the skills, for example, for facility managers to make this transformation happen, to bring the knowledge to the market. And as this session here with Thierry as moderator is intended to think about scaling really talent development, I would like to share two hypotheses on the next slide with you here about how we might scale knowledge development. And one thing we believe is that the future of talent depends on redesigning the processes and concepts of working. So it's might not be new again, but it's really very important from our perspective to implement these thoughts here listed into practice. So one thesis is that that in the digital automated future, the working environment needs to be designed in a way that people can easily reflect on their work results and get knowledge needed to solve a problem. So we need to implement better feedback. People really need to be stimulated to start, let's say, learning, reflective learning on what is going on. That's what I've called augmented intelligence, which is not new from a concept perspective. The second thesis is that the working environment needs to be designed in a way that time formerly needed for manual work is really invested to provide new training materials and content in new formats. So it's a kind of integrated learning environment that we are considering here or inspiring here, so that we really make use of the time which is, let's say, free, not just to really increase productivity, but really use this time to train people. So a kind of augmented training might be a solution to really develop the future of workforce and make people more knowledgeable in what they are doing. So if on the next slide, the one basic concept is illustrated. So before this, we distinguish the working periods and qualification seminars. But in the future, we need to think about concepts that allow people to work and to learn and to develop themselves and to get new knowledge. And these are things, and these are slightly illustrated, or let's say illustrated on the next slide. We are driving forward here. So we are really trying to figure out how we can make use of augmented reality, how we can make use of AI to support people to conduct challenging work in the digital economy, and to learn faster and make use of the existing infrastructure in a factory environment or in a maintenance environment, and to get trained on the job. It seems to be when that, of course, this is not a new concept, but if we talk to companies, corporations like Johnson Controls, like Schindler Elevators, all these companies, they are really suffering from, let's say, upskilling the workforce. They really need to make an impact in our economy and ecology. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Gerhard. And I have notes, so I'll be able to bring back many of these topics when we start our discussion. But next up, we have Werner de Huyer, and I'll let him speak to his presentation here.
Morning, good afternoon, good evening. Yes, so my title says that I'm the global GIS lead, and I often get the question, what is GIS? It stands for Geographic Information Systems, and we use this technology a lot in Cisco to help us with our supply chain. So I love the comments on the hurricane. We track those live to understand where our warehouses are, where the customers in need of parts are, to ensure that, if there an overlap between those two. So that's my functionality, driving geographic information systems. And I love the conversation that Binja had on supply chain, because that's where the technology applies as well. Artificial intelligence, we've heard a lot here. Cisco uses it a lot as well to apply its knowledge to troubleshooting cases and improve our ability to repair your equipment remotely versus having to replace it. So it certainly has a tangible benefit to Cisco. But I'm going to take a couple of steps back and say, look, for the future of expertise, there's several foundational values that we shouldn't leave behind. And I saw this comment about the human dignity just a moment ago. A beautiful transition for that. The human dignity, whether it's artificial intelligence or augmented reality, which is helpful for our field engineers as well. It's still in the field and in the work, the passion for learning, for working, love what you do, basically. It is so many people that dislike their jobs. According to statistics, roughly 50%. That's a lot, depending on the job they perform. But it is influenced by managers, by teachers. If we have great teachers, learning becomes fantastic. If we have great managers, the work becomes fantastic. And so leading the next generation of leaders to help us with the future of work is important there. And really the enthusiasm that a person brings when they have a passion for work, it's so infectious that it helps with the job performance for everyone. The next one, which I find a core basic in whether it's the past, present, or future of expertise, is the curiosity for data, right? Learning. I have a 6-year-old daughter. I get the question, why, all the time. And it's such a basic question. And it leads her to new understandings. And the more whys she asks, the more she learns, basically. So that curiosity really has an impact and allows us to, we should never disconnect from that part of our youth, basically. There's tons of books around intrinsic motivation, and some of these are really connected into that as well. But it's the drive to make a difference, right? So your inner drive, it influences other people, but it also influences your own work, and it helps you go the extra mile. In global roles, working from home, you have to be self-motivated to meet with all the different theaters, time zones, to drive while you're stuck in an office away from everybody else that's stuck in their own remote office. So that intrinsic motivation, it's so core to, again, past, present, and future of expertise. Change. We hear it, we talk about it, but don't fear it. And that is not as easy as it sounds. We need to have a positive attitude towards change, because it's happening at an ever faster speed. And whether it's an organizational change, which always is dissettling, or a technology platform that we have to introduce and relearn the skills to go with that new technology platform, or where it uplifts some of our jobs to learn new skills that goes with the platform, it's always there, and it comes at a faster and faster pace. And that's where the adaptability to a changing world, but also the positive attitude towards change. Now, you need to be able to reskill quicker, indeed, to learn the new technologies. And my last bullet here, you see adaptability to a changing world. It's a tough one, people. We live in a world that's changing faster, not just the skills that we need, climate change, economic change, the shift in global affairs. What we're seeing on the news on a daily basis, both from a human perspective as well as an economic perspective, it's sometimes dissettling, not sometimes, it's very dissettling and discomforting, but we need to be able to live in this new world. And to live in this new world, the transferable skills that we gain in life to thrive in the marketplace and stay competitive, well, we need to weather the storms, is where that comes down to. So in my humble opinion, these are just some of the skills that are basic now, past as well as present, as well as future expertise. And this expertise is developed every day as we work, whether it's in classrooms or in the office or in the remote office, in my case. And we use these basics to grow our expertise and our knowledge base. So loving the conversation, and thank you for giving me some time to tell you about GIS, AI, AG, but mostly the basics today and future. Thank you.
Well, and I will say that in the chat, the focus was entirely on the human aspects and the deep resonance that your comments were having with so many people listening. So thank you for that. And Michelle, if you'd moved us to the next talk, Sunil is going to take us through the next one. And I think given we don't have slides here, it's just conversation. So if we could stop the share and be together again.
Absolutely, Michelle, thank you. So I'll you get to hear me talk for a few minutes, and I'll avoid using slides. So by way of introduction, I'm Sunil Kuplani. I've been part of ISSIP for some number of years now, and started when I was a VP at Cisco a few years ago. So I can relate to a lot of my Cisco alumni and colleagues that are on the call here. You know, for me, one of the critical areas and what makes this conversation really important is, in my current role, I'm the CTO of a startup in healthcare. So, you know, one of the things we're always looking at is how do you recruit and develop top talent? And this is something I was also focused on at Cisco and, you know, various other roles since then as well. And I think an area of opportunity for us, and I look at this from an ISSIP lens, I look at this from a technology lens, and sort of where we are as an industry is, how do we partner closer with educational institutions such that that window from when we bring in early in talent, early in career individuals into the enterprise to the point where they feel like they're actually contributing to the mission. If you think about that as two ends of the bridge, if you will, how do we think about shortening that bridge, right? And I know in our current world, we're always looking for folks that are relatively early in career for several reasons. One, they can help pick up our domain and build with us, which is really important, especially when you're in an environment like healthcare that's incredibly complex. And you know, I live in the world of prescription medications inside of healthcare, which has its own vagaries and you know, perspectives and lots of challenges, right? So that's a long way of saying domain expertise becomes really, really important. And I know my colleagues in you know, the technology space face similar challenges, right? So to the extent we can think about how do you prep folks coming out of educational institutions with enough industry discipline, industry perspective, such that we can shrink that bridge, I think that goes a long way, not only for the enterprise, but frankly for the individuals as well, right? Because as we bring folks on, they want to contribute, they want to be part of moving everything forward, and they themselves want to accelerate that window, right? So I think there's a real opportunity here. And I don't profess to know the answer, but I do think there is an opportunity, whether it's through joint programs, whether we do it on a targeted basis, and really start to think about how can we jointly bring that together. And it might be targeted educational programs as well, which I know are done in countries outside of the United States, right? So that's sort of the area of focus, and I'd love to get a dialogue going with this group on ideas as to how we can do that. And my general view is we have enough participants and enough breadth across the ISSIP enterprise that this is something that we have incredible talent, incredible expertise, and frankly, can go try a few things. So that's my story, and I'm sticking to it.
Thank you so much, Sunil. I was just saying in the chat, and I think I did it poorly. It sounded like my value to ISSIP, but what I was saying is, as someone coming from education, but also working with industry, what drew me to ISSIP was this deep opportunity to work at the same time with both educational institutions and industry partners. And the idea that we can play an even stronger role is something I hope we're going to carry forward out of this conversation. So thank you so much for your ISSIP support. And Michelle, let's go to our final slide, or our final speaker for this panel. and then we'll open up. So Amar is going to do his introduction, and then Michelle, if you wouldn't mind running his slides. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much. Can you hear me? Okay, hi everyone. I'll try to stick within 5 minutes. I promise that. My name is Ammar Reis. I'm a distinguished engineer at Cisco Systems. I work in various areas. So I'm going to talk mainly about what's going on in the industry right now in terms of future of skills, what type of skills the industry is looking for. And I've done research. This is not like a typical Cisco view, if you will. I looked at many other companies, including Amazon, Facebooks, and others. And I concluded, or I came up with the top 6, if you will. So let's jump to the first one. Again, these are the skills in terms of having a mindset, in the sense that not everybody has to drive this entrepreneur type of thinking, but everybody should have a mindset related to these areas that I'm going to be mentioning. Number one, what's going on is there is a big move of combining business and technology in the area right now. And the reason is technology is changing very quickly. So businesses cannot wait for IT to learn and adopt technologies. They'd like to apply it as quickly as possible in order to beat competitions for price reasons and so on and so forth. IT departments are still there, but they're being thinned out, reduced. Many companies, actually smaller companies, moving some of this IT to IT as a service. And operation leaders are hiring directly. For example, here I'm showing an oil rig in the middle of the ocean. The average oil rig, they have like over 10,000 sensors, and they're hiring directly. So they're going to the technology and business schools. If they need engineers, they hire directly. They don't go through IT any longer. And therefore, they expect the leaders coming in, whether from business or engineering or otherwise, to have a combined mindset. They have a mindset in terms of how to run the business, successful business. At the same time, if they're using the technologies, to utilize the technology in that fashion. So this is one of the key areas taking place right now, and it's driving IoT heavily. Next one. Next is the ownership. In order to innovate quickly and determine the value of the innovation, so new leaders, as they come to the business, they need to act on behalf of the entire company. So it's no longer the case, well, I am, for example, the engineering manager, and therefore I just deliver my products, then the business folks will figure out what to do with it and the growth and so on and so forth. It is expected right now from the leaders very much at every level. I mean, unless you're a very low coder, for example, that you have this ownership mindset and you act on behalf of the entire company. Again, the main reason is how fast things are moving and how the technologies are changing quickly. And therefore, this is an important area. Number 3, simplicity. Well, this is a long concept, I think from the 50s or the 60s, the KISS principle. So this is still a very important area across all different systems I have worked with, throughout my career. In the sense that most systems will work best if they kept simple, and they should be the simplicity requirement should be at all levels, including the design. Customers very much right now, and we have thousands of examples, I think we've all been through. Customers are expected that whatever system they have, and all levels, enterprises, service providers, consumer, and so on, that you simply plug the device and it works correctly. For example, on the technology side and networking, zero-touch provisioning is important. Plug and play is very important for many of us. And this is a key requirements that we need to support. Number 4, seek feedback, very important. So it is expected right now from leaders, as you get hired, to build this relationship between businesses, engineering, usability, marketing, sales, and so on, to know exactly what's going on in the industries, the business as a whole. So you cannot no longer just, again, isolate yourself saying, well, I'm a technologist, therefore I'm just staying in my department, or I'm in sales, I just follow up with my sales leads and so on. Understanding the big picture is very important. Number 5, speed and agility. Again, given how things are changing and how the technology is very much changing quickly, it is important to take risk right now, to test the new ideas in the prototyping right away. You know, the waterfall process is very much dead. Try to prototype whatever ideas you have. Validate. If you fail, fairly quickly, and adjust in that fashion. And I like the quote here, the last third bullet. I've seen many successful people fail after they start fearing that they may lose what they have built, and therefore they avoid experimental with the new areas, new technologies, and new businesses, and so on and so forth. It is very important, if you have an idea, go for it and validate it quickly and determine the outcome. Finally, number 6, not invented here symptom is dead. This is very important area. Many of us, if you build something and you've been successful with it and you feel it can be utilized and extended and so on and so forth. But right now, what's going on in the cloud area, what's going on in the open source, what's going on in the APIs, open APIs, exposures, and even I'm taking this AI postgraduate programs at University of Texas right now, and there are complicated Python programs to write. But when we search, I mean, it's amazing when you do a little bit of searching, try to identify if there is a function somebody has written already, you could utilize. There are thousands of capabilities you could use. So therefore, it is very important that to have the open mindset to try to use what is out there before you build everything yourself. That's the end of my talk.
Well, wonderful. Thank you so much, Amar. And the chat was blowing up with that. There is a huge amount of support around the ideas of not only industry, education, integration, but also in how we can support people at all levels of their education. What I would like to do first is to go back to Bindia and have her speak to how she's been working with educational institutions. And when I say that, I don't necessarily mean a high school, a university, or something like that. I think we're seeing a much richer landscape of the possible kinds of organizations and networks that are helping people develop these skills. And actually, before I dive there, I'll even say that from the panel as a whole, the thoughtfulness offered and what I call 5T thinking. So those of you who come from an older language around that, it might have been socio-technical systems. We heard about 2 ends of a bridge and the idea that it's never just the human, it's never just the technical. It's really a combination of the talent, the technique, the technologies, aligning towards a target, but acknowledging the times that we're dealing with. And I know we're going to circle back and talk about worker shortages. Everything has been mentioned, from trucking to in high tech, and how all of these organizations are working to deal in that kind of an environment. But let me go back to Bindia first.
Yeah, so we work extensively because with universities and academic institutions, because, I will tell you my experience with supply chain risk was I learned over 10 years after living through Hurricane Katrina, the Big Asia tsunamis, obviously 9/11, the tantalum capacitor, multiple bankruptcies, and swine flu pandemic. It was the school of hard knocks. What we really need is we don't have the luxury for the next generation of supply chain experts to learn over a decade. So we need to squish the learning algorithms and timeframes and get those students to hands-on experience. In my world, supply chain risk is what we are about. So how do we get students ready to not just understand why risk management is important, but come out with best practices, with a knowledge and understanding of the tools. So a couple of things we have done is we've created an academic partnership where actually some of our materials, our tools and technologies are actually embedded in the supply chain risk management programs. In the supply chain curriculum, students log into the mobile app and they see not only that they should manage risk and why, but what are companies doing to, what are the tools that they're using, what are the best practices that they have. So when these students go out, they have exposure to an early warning system that is powered by AI. They can have classroom discussions of this hurricane that is coming over Vietnam. How does this affect a high-tech industry supply chain, right? Without having to learn that on the job. So those are the things that we need to think about, is how do we create those opportunities for students to not to compress those time scales, and I think that's where companies, not only thinking about traditional environments like, hey, I'll sponsor an intern or a project, but actually take our technologies and embed them into the classroom, in the curriculum itself. Something to think about there.
Thank you so much. And I'm also seeing such a great range presented here in terms of, you know, the industry partner working with the educational institution and offering up the tools that are actually of value in what's going to be their careers as they move forward. Let me just open it up to the rest of the panel. Where do you think we're going to go next with this? And Gila, feel free. All right, the panel is not thinking yet about where we're going to go next with this. Did I hear someone ready to go? Yeah, gamification. And I will share that the biggest challenge I have is that in my field, I'm teaching innovation to MBA students. We don't have a go-to obvious career, you know, that I'm going to be a supply chain manager. And so these are the tools that are going to be part of my career. Beyond saying everyone needs to use Slack, and then skills like design thinking in 5T from my perspective and the like, I don't have an obvious industry to partner with. And, you know, maybe what I'm going to hear today is that I'm just not thinking about this right, and that there are some industry partners to come along. I'm very interested in the work that Gila's doing in terms of getting together with industry, even at the early stages of the research, because those partnerships are going to carry forward into the work that her students are able to do. As we learn these new ideas. And to be sure, I teach about her NASA case with great success. You know, the students are always absolutely thrilled to hear about how, yes, innovation can be broadened, but we can't forget about how the organization is designed, how people have designed their careers and what their expectations are. And we're living through, as everyone has mentioned, we're living through folks who came through a more industrial kind of education. And so for people at that stage of their career, this is a traumatic shift. And then hopefully we're catching people earlier to develop that entrepreneurial mindset. So let me open it back up again to either panel members, or we have a great group today. Anyone else chime in?
Can you hear me? This is Amar.
Amar, yes.
Yeah. So absolutely, I think that the challenge you have actually is maybe the same challenge in the industries. I mean, in terms of identifying those classical positions, like I'd like to work as a program manager in supply chain, and therefore here is the expected tools and responsibilities. If I learn those, I'm close to get a job. Yeah, with the things changing rapidly, even the focus in specific industries are moving from identifying those classical position into areas that need to be covered. I mean, for example, there used to be like a network, a NOC, a network operations center engineer, for example. Right now, all these terms are being moved or eliminated because the NOC could be a NOC or network operation systems in the company itself, or it could be in the cloud, and the responsibilities are very different. And they're moving into the functionalities of these areas that, the person who's managing the network is expected, for example, to have a skill in what they call net apps, network operations, the skill in AI apps, AI operations and security and so on. So maybe what I'm saying, focusing on the skills, the needed skills, is becoming more important than identifying a particular job itself.
Well, Amar, you're giving some support for the ideas that I'm teaching in that innovation course. So thank you for that, and thank you for I wasn't sure, Kevin Clark. I think you were saying yes, those innovation skills, the ideas of entrepreneurial mindset, cross industry and cross roles, and Annie, can you speak a little bit about the Wall Street Journal conference you went to? And I'm guessing they also talked about how people don't necessarily stay in one career stream as much, and so these crossing skills, or as Jim Sporer likes to describe the T skills, where we have depth to be sure, but we also have breadth that lets us work with others.
So I'm happy to speak to that, Terry. So my comment was around, so the Wall Street Journal did a Future of Education. In January of this year, they had an online event, and I was so fortunate to be able to go because I learned a lot. But one of the most fascinating things I learned is that based on labor shortages and the way that four-year education plans out education and goes through the process of having to get approvals by certain people and get certifications and credentialing to be able to offer classes that align with a degree program that is approved by there's red tape for good reason. But what happens is, as we look at the future of expertise in education, vocational and trade schools and community colleges are able to react more quickly often than four-year schools. And the one that I heard about was from, and I'm trying to figure out, Amanda Cage is the president and CEO of the National Fund for Workforce Solutions. She actually talked about how they are using AI to scan for jobs that are currently available and the skills required. And they are reacting by creating and crafting vocational programs through community colleges to be able to respond more quickly. So one of the questions earlier and the thoughts earlier was, how can we have, higher education actually partner with industry? I think one of the things isn't just partnering with industry. I think one of the things is learning from community college. How can we react? And then also, when we look at the University of Texas, they have an entrepreneurship program in creative technologies as part of their fine arts. I think they built the program like 8 years ago. And so they're starting to develop and get some really great momentum. And one of the things they have is schools like that, they'll give a quarter of a credit for programs that are not one credit specifically, but a quarter of a credit to training programs or classes or courses that are not necessarily having to go through the entire process of being a degree pathway, and yet they're also things where you want to incentivize students to learn them. So I think rethinking how four-year colleges actually develop curricula, how they incentivize students to take it, who they partner with, and how big the heft is. Because if you're developing an academic curricula that takes a really long time, you're trying to get an industry involved, these are years-long processes. And by the time you do it, cybersecurity will have changed entirely.
I'm sitting here laughing with my mute button on. It's at least 2 years for us to bring up even a 1-year master's program that we have said this is the most important thing for them to be learning now. And then by the time we get it done, that time has passed. So I am quite excited to hear that the community college curricula may be more fluid. And also, this is something back from the days when I was an associate dean in a business school. The idea is still, and we have parents and grandparents who are still socializing our students, and we need them to the idea that you're only going to have this one career, or this idea that you take your undergraduate degree and then you're done, or an undergraduate and a master's and you're done. I used to show a heartbeat slide that had 2 heartbeats and then a flat line, and saying, no, that's not the world of the future. We have to constantly be coming back. And I think about it as a mosaic of education, both traditional degrees, certifications, just learning how to do something so that you can go and do it for your organization or other needs. But that we need to stop selling so hard that there are these giant hurdles that you cross, but rather that learning what you need to know now is really so important.
Right. So
Yeah.
to your point, I think the cool thing about it is that it's almost like we have privatized. There are startups and there are content creators and there are people who now you have this vibrant community of not just postgraduate education, but like post-high school education and certifications. So when we talk about the future of expertise, super critical to make sure employers are aware of what makes an expert. This is something I'm talking about and thinking about and trying to write about. How do we see experts? Not just how we build experts, but how do we as industry see experts? So for instance, Cisco has a tremendous amount of certifications that we offer. We have CCNAs, we have CCIEs, but we also have cybersecurity certifications and some entry-level cybersecurity certifications. We have free education, we have crowdsourced, we have MOOCs, we have lots of different ways that we're doing it. The thing is, the tricky part is that when we fracture those away from accreditation, where is the value and the trust that people coming on board are going to be truly expert? And I think that's a gap we haven't solved for yet. But the thing I like about what you said, Terry, and the thing I like about it is we're talking about lifelong learning. That's fine, but it doesn't mean a master's. Incremental lifelong learning. How do we take a course? How do we read a book and have what does that look like? I think redefining incremental lifelong education and learning will, just like you're talking about, it will simplify and detach the pressure that people have to look for master's degrees as part of what they need to do.
Absolutely. Thank you for that. I see Yassi's hand up, and Varner, know that you're on deck. But Yassi first.
Yeah, thank you so much. Thanks everyone for your great talks. I think there's another angle to this. And I think the value of community and creating community as a role, that a learning community as a role that universities can take. I think one of the problems is that content has been commoditizing, but universities are still very focused on content. And they can play a role in creating a learning community of industry, academia, students, as well as pipelines from education to employment by partnering with each other. And I think that angle is not being enough utilized. So I think there's a great opportunity for us here to do collaborations around that in ISSIP, and ISSIP really provides that platform.
Yeah, and you see Santa Cruz being at the forefront of those efforts. Absolutely. So Varner, just briefly, because at 10:30 we will move to our keynote on time. The EU has always seemed to me to be so much more thoughtful about this mosaic of education and developing the focus on dynamics and change that you mentioned in your talk. I mean, am I reading that correctly?
Boy, that's a deep one. No.
Speak for the entire continent, please.
Right. I think whether it's the workforce or the education force, the diversity of the participants. And in school, you're always, you haven't been specialized yet, so you're more open-minded when you're into the school. I see some of the companies hiring people that are from sports or from music or from arts, and they bring them in to do the innovation aspect to help them think outside their own perspective. And I think the diversity of the group that you're in really helps you with that aspect. Now, Europe is a much more, has different languages, has very different cultures, very close to each other. America has also its own cultures within its continent, but it's a much larger continent. So the cultures are smooth a lot more than the cultures in Europe. So maybe that's the influence. The funding is an aspect too. Education is very cheap over there. When I look at education for my daughter, I got to save $80,000 per year today to put them through college. When I'm looking at Europe, I don't have to concern myself with funding for school. So I think there's lots of foundational aspects that leads to that different mosaic. But yeah, actually, I wanted to bring up an item that Jeremy listed as well. So we have 1 minute left. His concern in the chat was here that as we automate so many jobs, as we have this artificial intelligence moving along, the trucking industry, yes, we have 800,000 soon to be short jobs. After that, we'll have automatic self-driving trucks, which at that point takes the biggest job category away. What do we do with people that can't morph away? Is that augmented reality? Is that how we quickly enhance their capabilities, their job skills? But I think Jeremy had a very valid point that certainly has me concerned as well, to say, are we creating more gaps in society as some people are able to go with the next future of expertise and some people don't leave anybody behind?
Thank you so much for that. And, thank you so much to Bindia, Gerhard, Warner, Sunil, and Amar for bringing all of this in. I know Hila had to go off to another research meeting, a big surprise there. So many insights. And then Michelle was texting me about the Cisco alumni, both on the panel, in the talk today. And I will chime in that I think I get to count. I have a very nice set of research papers that came out at Cisco with a hidden name, but absolutely thank them for whatever it is that happens within that organization that lets people go out and continue that innovation process. So stay tuned for how we will extract all the amazing information, both from the conversation and the chat. And Michelle, I will turn it back to you.
Okay. Thank you, Terry. Let me share my screen. And I do want to add my thanks to that panel. That was amazing. In the chat where I'm saying I'm totally rethinking this, limiting the time to a 2-hour summit. I think 3 would have been good. Give that panel and Hila more time. So very much appreciate everybody's efforts, though, to bring us to the 10:30 Pacific slot here for our keynote address. And I am, you are seeing my screen? And we do have it full screen? All right, that brings us to our final speaker of the day, who I am excited to share is the keynote presentation from Joanne Wright, who is a vice president with IBM, VP of Enterprise Operations and Services, where she leads the company's operational workflows and transformation to a digital workplace. And let me share just a bit about what that encompasses at IBM. Joanne is redesigning IBM's operating model and drives end-to-end digital solutions, which includes brand support and strategic advice, that's the enterprise operations, operational processes, quote to cash, sales incentives, and digital platforms, that's the enterprise performance management and IBM Sales Cloud, and transformation, the chief analytics office, digital strategy. And she accelerates IBM's digital transformation through global talent development and by creating this culture of engagement, agility, and innovation that we've been talking about. Joanne also leads the operations of 1,000 IBM offices in 175 countries through global real estate for IBM, including creating IBM's future workplace strategy in a post-COVID world. I'd seen Joanne years ago in supply chain circles when she was Chief Operating Officer of IBM Supply Chain, blazing new frontiers with her introduction of cognitive technology for transparent, intelligent, and predictive supply chain for clients across those 170 plus countries in partnership with IBM Watson. Along with her current role at IBM, Joanne is a member of IBM's acceleration team, the executive sponsor of Global Women of IBM, and a member of Women in Technology International. She's an executive board member of Supply Chain Leaders in Action, serves on the advisory board of the University of Tennessee's Global Supply Chain Institute, has been named one of Fortune's most powerful women next gen, elected the Female Executive of the Year Stevie Award in Business Services category in 2019. And in 2020, Joanne was presented with the Awesome Legendary Leadership Award. Joanne Wright, for the academics among us, is a graduate of Glasgow, Caledonian University, Scotland, with BA Honours in Business and Marketing, and also holds a diploma in Procurement Management from Strathclyde University, also in Scotland. On behalf of ISSIP, I am proud to introduce Joanne Wright as our keynote speaker for today.
Great. Michelle, thank you very much. And thank you so much for this opportunity. I think this is just such a powerful topic on this whole opportunity for not us just embracing the roles of the future, but thinking about the incredibly important role that expertise plays in the future of work and how essential it's going to become to us creating a growth-minded culture that's truly going to accelerate our transformation. I've always thought that operations supply chain is one of the coolest roles in any large enterprise. But I think, honestly, as I reflect, this is our time where truly it's going to be this like whiteboard of opportunity to think about the world that we're going to create together. So I ask you to take us on to the next chart, please, Michelle. What I wanted to do is do a little bit of level set. I think, digital transformation is a word that many of us use. We use it in multiple different ways. So I want to do a little bit of level setting. If you think about it, this is an amazing opportunity to reimagine how we do business. For IBM, it's been about us starting with our data as a foundation, but it's also given us the opportunity to truly look at all aspects of end-to-end workflow and how we enable technology to engage with our clients. It's interesting to me that it's all for us also about the user experience. I think all of us as users of multiple different apps, multiple different engagements, both professionally and personally. And I think all of us would look at it from a point of view of its the experience that we have and also the time to value. And for us at IBM, the time to value has really been about how quickly we can deliver our business outcomes. Being a digital enterprise is given IBM the opportunity to deliver speed, value, and for us, that's two measures of success strategically. It's revenue growth and it's free cash flow. And it's also then about how we become much more efficient and effective. For us, we've looked at it from sort of three main angles. We've thought about a lot about how we adapt our organization, how we align the operating model, and how we reimagine how we could structure our teams, structure the way work gets done. But most importantly, and what I want to spend a lot of time with all of you today on, is how we empower our people to not just be innovative, but to truly thrive in this digital era. And I think all of us recognize that's a little easier said than done. And I love the panel discussion that you just had, where there's a real realization that for many of our team members and for our organizations, this is almost a terrifying moment in time where their work is changing, their skills need to be revamped and aligned to the future. And for many of them, they want to know, what does that mean? What does it mean for me to drive my expertise and for my skills? Next chart, please. I did want to share with you sort of the 4 basic activities that we took action on. We've, as I started with let's reimagine business. The past 3 years, we've had COVID. We've all lived in a hybrid world. We've kind of reimagined how we engage with each other. But I also think it's given us this burning platform moment in time to really redefine how we drive our operations. We want to be touchless, we want to be digital, we want to be seamless, we want to be fast. But I think we also want to learn about how do we want to engage with our clients? How do we want them to engage with us? Also, how do we want to engage with each other? And fundamentally, I think all of us have recognized that in order to be this fast and be this agile and to drive this level of transformation, it's going to start when we can all establish what we deem a growth mindset, truly enabling us to realign the skills and capabilities of our people, and thinking about this as not just a world of technology, but truly an opportunity to look at it from the lens of talent transformation. It's from the growth mindset that really experience blossoms. It's when you realize that your digital transformation is on the right track, when your teams are pulling to learn more, they're pushing to want to be trained and educated, they're driving themselves to really understand the future of work, which I think is ours to create and theirs to develop into. The world is theirs to take, and I think all of them want to deeply understand how they can do that in an accelerated way. For us, I know we talked earlier, it is about being very agile. It's about feeling fast, course correcting. It's about being okay with uncertainty and embracing the change that is coming, and it's coming faster each day and each month and each year. Next chart, please. So to get that kind of building foundation of a growth mindset, we've kind of truly approached it as looking at it as new programs and fresh ways to look at the expertise that we need. I would say the analogy I'd give is you have a boat, you have, very many people rowing, you have the ones who are rolling really fast and driving as fast and furious in the direction. And then you've got the team in the middle that's doing a great job and they're constantly delivering. And any of the ones perhaps who are not quite there and not bought into the journey or not driving in the same rowing direction. But for us, what we drive to think about each and every day is how do we drive this growth mindset that truly inspires catalysts for change? These catalysts are IBMers that have a skill base, but they're much more excited and curious about the expertise that they can build, that they can look for ways to optimize their roles. How do they eliminate complexity? How do they drive simplification? How do they optimize end-to-end workflow? How do they accelerate technology adoption? And in everything that we do, having a client-centric attitude. So how quickly can we delight our clients each and every day? Those with this expertise anticipate that it's going to be tough. They anticipate what their value is, and they look for ways to truly drive them to elevating their roles to the areas that bring most value. Given a growth mindset, individuals, performers self-discover, they drive expertise in every aspect of the digital information, and they're not just survivors, they are the ones who are determined that they will thrive and that they'll become exemplars of this new digital era. Next chart, please. So I wanted to spend just a couple of minutes on us kind of delving in a little deeper as to when we talk about those who've got that expertise mindset, that growth in everything they do, what does that truly mean? I just listed a few areas that kind of, as I self-reflected, looking at my organization and looking at my global teams in many countries around the world with different cultures, different experiences, different maturities. What are the things that kind of differentiate? Hunger for learning. I love the whole conversation about bringing industry and academia together, truly looking for ways that we can actually foster not just as a starting point as we bring in graduates and new hires, but continue to evolve that thinking as we go into this digital era. Critical thinking. I can't tell you how often I ask our new hires, our interns, our every IBMer, let's challenge the status quo. We are given an analogy that when we're children, we play, we don't have fear, we're willing to try new things, and then as we get older and wiser, we start to believe that, well, we've done that, we've seen this play out, and we know the outcome that's going to be achieved by changing things. I think we're looking for people to critically think each and every day about the process, about the way work is done, and challenging the status quo. And then even better if they can then articulate with complete clarity the way things are done and why driving to this new way of doing things will drive a much better business outcome and a much better experience, most importantly for our clients, but many, many times also for them as IBMers and employees. So their engagement increases when they're thinking about how they've changed the way work gets done and how their role shows up each and every day. Collaboration, I think, is essential. You know, when you talk about end-to-end workflow, many times you're not talking about something within a domain of expertise. I look at even the different roles that we have, and I've had within supply chain, procurement, or running even real estate today. Seldom do we actually derive an outcome by working alone or even working in a silo. And so collaboration and being able to then, as a team, ruthlessly prioritize is absolutely an essential element of how I think of driving your expertise and becoming growth minded. And then, and may this be a little extreme, but it's something that I've thought a lot about, is some of this takes confidence. Confidence to be willing to change, confidence to be willing to take the leap of faith. The analogy I'd give is growth and comfort don't tend to coexist. And so when you're really uncomfortable, you tend also to be thinking, should I be trying this? And I think then having confidence drives you to be successful. Next chart, please. As Michelle gave me this glowing intro, you know, my role in IBM is IBM Enterprise Operations and Services. It truly is at the hearts and lungs of running this great iconic brand. And I think what we have talked a lot about is how do we foster the kind of behavior and this growth-minded individual that we're looking to not only grow, but to actually expand across all of our workforce. So what we've created is an opportunity for us sharing stories. We put a big spotlight on those who've achieved great successes, where they've tried and they've shared their story about what they've managed to do. That could be in process optimization, technology adoption, or just delighting our client each and every day. We emphasize the value they've achieved. We use digital credentials. We have an incredible platform for learning called uLearning, but at its core, it brings in great insights and applications and training across many different domains, across many different technologies. And it truly is allowing people to self-service on where is their passion, where is their expertise, and what would they like to develop for the future. What we're also looking at is the way that you take today's challenges and you prepare for tomorrow's possibilities or tomorrow's threats. I think all of us would recognize that the world that we're operating in today continues to be very challenging. And with many of the economic and macro environments that we're in, we're thinking now about what do we need to prepare for the future and what skills do we need. And a lot of that, you know, comes down to being able to drive better speed, faster speed, more value with efficiency, effectiveness, and that incredible experience, whether you're a client or whether you're one of our team in operations or services. Next chart, please. One of the things I wanted to share with you is I have reflected on where we've been in the past, I would say, year to 18 months. I think we've actually looked at the roadmap that we had on our transformation journey. We've possibly, I would argue personally, achieved more in the past 18 months than we've achieved in the past 5 to 7 years. It's not without its opportunities and it's not been without its challenges, but this fostering the growth mindset, really giving people visibility into the art of the possible, it allows them to embrace challenge. It allows them to want to thrive and build their expertise. And it allows them to also, I strongly would believe, not just have much more satisfaction about the role they have, but also how valuable they are in the roles that we're creating for the future. I'm going to have the opportunity now to take some Q&A from you all, but I did want to say to you, I do like to post quite frequently my thoughts and insights on LinkedIn. I've shared my dot link here. I would love either today or in the future to continue this dialogue and to continue to hopefully allow us to kind of co-create this next chapter of future of work with particular focus on expertise.
Are there, I do not have visibility to chat right now. So, and thank you, Joanne. We are opening up to Q&A before we wrap Joanne's time. Are there questions for her that I would ask Terry or Jim to share with us?
Well, Michelle, could you drop the slideshow?
Well, there is one more. Okay.
Oh, there is one more. I'm sorry.
Stop share. We'll do that. We'll look at the people.
Yeah.
I'll come back.
There you go.
I have a question, if you don't mind. I know I'm talking a lot. Joanne, I'm super curious. So one of the things I'm trying to do inside Cisco is once we identify people who are these, growth-minded folks who are creative, what's happening in younger generations, millennial and Gen Z, it's much more of a meritocracy than in Gen X. You have people who have good ideas, they're very entrepreneurial, they're very forward-focused, but trying to get them to establish themselves as people who have good ideas, giving them a platform to share those ideas so that not only are they, sitting, having great ideas in echo chambers, but really it becomes prolifically evolved across the organization. That's been a struggle. So how are you giving these employees that you pull on board who are catalysts, how are you giving them platforms to share ideas?
Annie, great question, and it's a pleasure to meet you. I think one of the things I tell you has been really powerful. We are big Slackers in IBM. I know that sounds funny, but we use Slack as a channel almost continuously. Now, I will say up front, Annie, like the ones who started off loving it and being very vocal were actually our new next generation. So the new hires, they were like embracing it, loving it. It's almost like a conversational discussion. It's, like we're having the chat right now. And so what we've seen is like, you see them like liking things, right? And then it's like, it almost creates momentum. So one of the things we'd struggled with in the past is, and I think it actually was brought up very, very distinctly in one of the presentations, is the not invented here syndrome. Mm-hmm. So people who are like, I'm the expert on this, why are you questioning how we do this? What we noticed was that by doing like a Slack channel, we created one called #Make It Life Simple. And it brewed its own set of community. And what we found was that rather than us say learn about a really good idea or innovation and say our center in Bratislava and try then and take that and replicate it in Latin America and Asia and all the other centers, is these teams on the ground were actually grabbing the idea and then fostering their own global team and then sharing the outcomes that they achieved and almost creating this momentum of empowerment and innovation. So that would just be one, I would say, in the past year that I've seen has really driven a different type of collaboration, and I would say a different sense of excitement about them getting a little bit of here, I've got a really good idea, has anyone tried this, and then fostering a dialogue and discussion where they almost co-create together within our communities.
Awesome. Yeah, we have some I read a McKinsey article recently. They called it innovation at the edge. Mm-hmm. So I'm always fascinated to see how different organizations are doing it. We have a group that's focused on Web3 and blockchain and metaverse, and we call it the collective.
I love that. That's a really good branding, right? That's what you're looking to create with it. That's a really good analogy.
Yeah. Anyway, all right. Thanks for the answer. It's interesting.
Thanks, Annie.
So, Michelle, I see Felix has his hand up.
Thank you. Felix?
Hello, everyone.
Hi
I
there.
have a question.
Please.
Yes, based on this is my first meeting, and actually, first of all, let me say thank you all for such a great session. Being that I'm a fresh graduate, I'm a graduate, and accountancy and financial management. But we find a challenge that most of industry, based on industry, they like to pick maybe those already having skills or already great innovators. But we find that mostly, let me say, from where I come background in Kenya, we find a challenge that most, let me say, new skills from schools. Actually, it find a great challenge on coming into the system. Let me say to the work industry, or expressing whatever their ideas they have. So how, being that I have desires of pursuing further studies also, and shining in my line of career, giving new innovation, being that in the essence of computer work as help us to grab off or to shut down the essence of book work based on accounting. So how could you advise somebody like me for this or recommendation for such programs? Because I see it's mostly on innovations, and we lack this. Maybe we can have the ideas, but we don't have the opportunity. We are not being given that opportunity to express it. How could we help in such situation?
Yeah, so Felix, I think this is where, particularly because we're talking about expertise, and then you're talking about trying to let new people kind of grow. I think linking them up with other people in your team that, you know, can give them that insight, give them that perspective, and give them a little bit of education and guidance on how to be operating in your team, within your company, and then foster that, I think, collaboration spirit with each other. You know, one of the things that we were reflecting on is, because we were all remote for the first kind of 18 months of this past pandemic, we were noticing that it was a different experience for people who were new. We had all built a lot of relationships, the ones who had been around. We all knew who to work with and how to work with each other. And the newbies were like, okay, I'm good at during the day. I have a WebEx, I have a Zoom meeting, but I don't know how to foster that ongoing kind of dialogue, discussion, and be innovative with some of my colleagues. And so we hooked them up almost with a virtual kind of buddy system that allowed them to sort of learn and continue to grow. And now, thankfully, we're back, and now they get to meet face to face, they get to collaborate together, and they get to expand their network. But I think that is part of the opportunity for Expertise and Thrive, is having that community that gives you the opportunity to learn.
Thank you.
And welcome to your first ISSIP event. When there's something wonderful about your voice. It's triggering my Alexa and my Bixby.
Oh, that's good, because it's funny, because I've got to say, Michelle, both my Alexa and my Siri doesn't understand my accent, so I had to quit.
Turning off. Is there a final question for Joanne? Was there something in?
Yes, I would like to raise one question. Gerhard from Aachen in Germany. So, Joanne, many thanks for your great insights, how you are trying to, or how IBM is transforming, and how you are implementing a different, let's say, culture or mindset.
Yes.
And we have done a huge series of interviews which clearly indicated that trust plays a very important role, and that trust is a foundation even to establish a growth mindset. So I'm a strong believer in what you are saying. And my question is really, as you've achieved this in your organization, could you share the insight about your, let's say, biggest challenge in this transformation or change, or even the biggest, let's say, the biggest failure that happens? Because usually not everything works fine, and I think it's a good learning for us to know what didn't work.
Yeah, I think Gerhard, I would tell you from my own perspective, and I even hear it from my teams, because we've done a lot of virtual events where we've done almost like active listening, you know, and what's working, what's not, even better if type discussion. It was that the teams were concerned that there was so many great ideas and that we were overwhelming them with opportunities. So it's like, you know, this is the great thing. If you really drive an agile agenda, then you have a funnel of work, right? And you all agree the priorities, and you kind of do the top 3 and then next 3. So it's okay to have like a wall of work of exciting innovations. But when people are like, okay, well, they're all going to be delivered by January the 1st, 2023, and that's now like only 12 weeks away. They were like, okay, can we reset? And obviously for us as well, we've been through a pretty, you know, roller coaster ride this year, as I'm sure many of the companies on this call and even the academia on the call have been. And so we've had to reset and then readjust. And when you do that, some of the people who've been like on a project that you decide is then not quite as essential or not quite as beneficial, or the world has changed, they're kind of married to that baby, right? They're married to their creation and they want to see it through. So I would tell you, we've done a lot on this, that being growth-minded needs a level of agility, flexibility, and then just as you described, trust. You know, trust me of me explaining to you why we're having to change course, or why we're prioritizing this project over perhaps the project that you've been working on, or the one that you were most married to. And a communication, so a little bit of organizational change management on steroids, I think is an essential element of this.
Thank you very much.
Thank you very much for your question. Pleasure to meet you.
I see no additional hands. Are there any I am missing, Terry or Jim?
No, and we are right at 11. So
We are. So Joanne, my goodness, I thank you. I think Mara made the comment that simplicity is the ultimate sophistication. Your message was fantastic, and we really appreciate your time. Thank you.
Oh, thank you so much. Good luck. And I see you put your Slack channel out there for all of us, and I will join with a pleasure to keep in touch. Thank you so much. Thank you, Michelle. Thank you, Terry.
Thank you. And Joanne said, Jim put in the chat here that Joanne has said Slack is a platform IBM uses, but I think what she said was that IBM are slackers. That's
yeah, I'll have to put in comments. That's my own words, right, Michelle?
Quoted properly there. Yes.
Thank you so much.
Thank you. So, and we want to thank IBM as well, Joanne for her time, which was fantastic, and IBM for its constant and annual support of us since they helped co-found ISSIP 10 years ago as an institutional member. And that brings us to our final wrap up. I want to thank all of you for helping power the ISSIP Discovery Summit with your participation. All the speakers will be presented with an ISSIP badge for their contribution to service innovation by sharing information with us in this exchange. And we will put out an email with all these key links that we've been sharing. And to Terry's point, yeah, we'll think of a way to share this great information. There's more, you know, that came up in chat. So there is so much going on. Really want to encourage you to follow us on LinkedIn and do sign up for that regular newsletter. There will be a white paper coming in October. The final panelist, Amar Cisco, is the author of that white paper. And it'll be informed by what was shared here today and the survey, which it's not too late to fill out. You have that link in your chat there to fill out the 5-minute survey of what's going on in the future of expertise. And that concludes the Discovery Summit, which along with, can I go backward? We have a weekly speaker series, the Discovery Summit series, the major events fall and spring. And another channel of engagement with ISSIP and benefit to members is helping you, ISSIP members who want to publish books. And you might have seen a press release we put out today congratulating Martin Fleming, who's put out next week, actually, we'll put out this book, which Jim Sporer has said is the most important book being released this year. And that's quite something because Jim himself put out a book this month called Service in the AI Era. But Jim and Haluk, sorry, Jim, did you want to say something?
I just want to say the Business Expert Press, I'll put the links into the chat. That's all. Thanks, Michelle.
Perfect. Just that is a partnership with Business Experts Press that Jim and Haluk manage, and they help ISSIP members that want to write and publish a book with editing and helping get it out. Do please check that. And at this page of the website, ISSIP.org, and here, and we'll give you a link to that as well, because there's a call for authors right now. So remember, joining ISSIP as an individual is currently a free thing. So encourage you to do that at this link, ISSIP.org/membership. If you're interested in institutional membership, reach out to me. There's my email. It's Michelle with 1L at ISSIP.org. And members, please do vote for VP before September is out. Also, nominations for the ISSIP Service Excellence Awards are now open. There is a lot going on. So please sign up for the newsletter, follow us on LinkedIn. And again, thank you for engaging with us today.